Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. I'm Nicole Guanzura and I have the distinct privilege of being your host. On this podcast, if you're new here, we chat every single Wednesday about all things to do with career wellness. We also talk about our faith journeys and how that intersects with our personal and professional journeys. Some weeks it's going to be solo, like today's episode, and other weeks I'm bringing really amazing guests. And the whole objective of this podcast is that if you are in your job seeker era, you're trying to figure out what's next for you, this is a great place to learn about other folks' journeys, get some really good information about what other people have been through, what experiences that they've had so far, and how that might possibly apply to your next journey. Or maybe you're looking for a little bit of inspiration and just want that confidence around the work that you're doing and how to continue to prove that you are the sauce at work. Maybe you are a higher ed professional or someone who works with college students and you are looking for ways to just continue to encourage your students and help them when they're focusing on their mental well-being, professional development, along with financial literacy. We are covering all of those topics, and today's episode is no different. Who am I? I am a mama, I'm a wife, I'm an early career development strategist or consultant, and I'm someone who's also really passionate about women's ministry. And every single week, as I said, I am here on YouTube, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. You can find me on Listen Notes. If you want to chat or want to connect with me face to face, this episode will also be on YouTube. So let's get into the topic for today. It's going to be short, quick, to the point, but I was just really excited about some cool things that are happening at two higher ed institutions. And I wanted to tie that into a lot of the things that I talk about and some of the things that are on your mind. So one of the things I really I focus a lot on in my work is supporting first generation, low income students, as well as students coming from low support backgrounds. So first generation, that typically means you are the first in your family to go to college. So that support sometimes at home is just not there and where it needs to be in terms of mom, dad, guardian, whatever that environment looks like at home is not, they are unable to provide you the level of support that you need because they have not previously experienced what it's like to go to college. So you're the first, and we want to make that navigation a lot easier for you. Maybe low income background, so your resources are limited in where you're starting from and where you're going as well. So one of the opportunities that we want to make sure is, even though you are limited on income, that doesn't mean that you cannot be exposed to more resources that are going to be free and low cost and helping you seek those out, because where you start doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up, or it doesn't mean that it's going to determine how your future ends up being. And then when I talk about low support, this is something that's not often talked about, but low support typically means, or conflicting support sometimes, typically means the background you're coming from at home. Maybe your family has really one vision for you and what they want you to do versus what vision or expertise your career is aligned to, your skill sets are aligned to, and just making sure you have the resources, one, to make the firmest and most solid decision in what you want to pursue in college, in your career, in your next steps, as well as making sure that's a conversation you can have with your family, with the advocacy of folks at school, and making sure you have the right support you need. So when I'm talking about all of that, that's what it means. What I'm really excited as well is when a lot of this work is happening, there isn't always adequate support in terms of funding for this kind of work. And looking at the schools, sometimes there's a lot of conversation about how to help first generation students, low income students, but there isn't always the funding behind it. So I just wanted to highlight, especially for folks that are looking at furthering their education. Maybe there's some families here that are trying to decide, they're a little early in their journey and trying to decide where college, what college their student may be going to next. And a couple of things that came up on my newsfeed. One, Radford University. I always get the updates. If you don't know, I'm a Radford University alumna. I got my undergrad bachelor's degree in marketing, and then I went back and got my master's in business administration from Radford. I continue to serve there on the alumni board of directors. So you want to call me biased on how I feel about Radford? Absolutely. I accept that wholeheartedly. But all bias and jokes aside, one of the things that has really stood out to me in what's going on now for the future of students that are going to Radford is, one, they recently released a tuition promise, and this tuition promise is helping students that are Virginia residents that their families earn under $100,000. They can come to Radford University for all 4 years for free, y'all, for free. Isn't that amazing? For some of us millennials who've already graduated and looking at the situation, wow, I wish that was me. That's really, really an amazing opportunity. It's really incredible because the way that I heard President Brett Danilovich talk about this at one of the press conferences he shared was, you should be able to just work over the summer. Maybe you're working a summer job and earn enough there to just help with your general upkeep and general support that you will need for the entire year, because the tuition will no longer be a burden for you. So whatever money you get is essentially providing for your household expenses. It's providing for your books and things like that. And one of the things also I love about what Radford does is there's also other resources. So say you're in a pinch and you really need some support somewhere, then you can turn to some services on campus that can help you with paying a bill if you're late on it, or something else that you might need additional support with. And it's not just Radford. Other schools do this, but I'm calling out Radford specifically because of this tuition promise. And then one of the other great benefits as well, Radford was recently recognized as really just a great leader in also the food pantry services that they offer, and just really helping to address food and insecurity on campus. And so I really love that, because not only are you now getting a tuition promise, but if you need a little support as well to make sure you're eating, that your core needs are met, you're coming into a community that helps you. And not only that, one of the things that also just recently popped out around Radford, they got about $1.2 million from the state of Virginia, because Radford is a public school, from the state of Virginia to help students who are eligible for Pell Grants. Usually Pell Grant recipients a number of them end up fitting in that first gen low income category. And so that funding is going to help, not only going towards hiring staff and support from a student support services background or student support services role, but it's also going to go and help to make sure that students have their needs met. And when students have their needs met, that leads to retaining students on campus. It means students have a better chance of graduating. And when we look at things from a national average, statistically, first generation students are graduating on average in 6 years, versus the typical 4 years, average 4 years, because of a number of reasons. Maybe, tuition is an issue and they're having to work for every dollar to pay for school. Maybe they are in a non-traditional path. So then going back to school means they're supporting families, and there's a number of things, a number of barriers. So I love that this funding is going to go and directly support the students whose needs need to be met and that need to complete their degrees in order to further their education. So shout out to Radford there. They did not ask me to do this. They did not ask me to shout this out at all, but I've just been reading it in the news and I'm just so proud of my alma mater, but I'm also proud of my current state of Virginia for what's happening and how they're working to support public education institutions. And so you don't fully think I'm just 100% biased to Radford and my love for Highlanders. I also wanted to highlight another school and another program that has just received, oh my goodness, breathtaking amount of money as well to support students, specifically in areas of high need, high demand. So Johns Hopkins University, for anybody who's not familiar with it, Johns Hopkins is located in the state of Maryland, and they recently announced that the Bloomberg Philanthropies gave them a gift of $1 billion, $1 billion. And this is going to help with supporting students so that any student at Johns Hopkins who wants to pursue their medical degree, their MD, is going to be able to go there for free. You can get your medical degree for free, y'all. How incredible is that? And I think the stipulation is your family has to make less than $300,000. And for a number of us, for a number of folks, that is a reality. And so instead of leaving school to go and now help people while you feel helpless with the burden of such a high debt ratio or just tied to student loans and feeling that crippling of how am I going to get a job that's going to pay back these loans? How am I going to support myself while trying to support my patients? This is something that is going to really help to eliminate a lot of those concerns. And one of the things I was reading from the article as well, and I'm reading it off to the side, if you see me looking over, it says that nearly 2/3 of current and entering medical students at Johns Hopkins will immediately qualify for either free tuition or free tuition plus living expenses. How incredible is that? And then it also says that eligible new and returning medical students will receive updated financial aid packages this summer that reflect the gift's impacts. And it's just absolutely incredible that, it's just one of the statements that they continue to say is that the scholarship formula will ensure that the most talented aspiring doctors that represent the broadest and deepest range of socioeconomic and geographic backgrounds have the opportunity to graduate debt-free from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. And students from the vast majority of American families will pay nothing at all. At all. I mean, there's a number of other schools that are getting funding, that are supporting their students, that are breaking barriers. And I just wanted to highlight those. One, because so you can see this action that's being taken. We are seeing right now so much that's happening with folks needing student loan forgiveness or applying and having to wait long periods for student loan forgiveness and all the rigmarole that is surrounded by that. But also, I have so much hope as someone who has been in the higher education space and early career development space for a little over a decade now. I have such hope for the future of what schools are doing to support their students, what some of the states are doing, some of the philanthropies. And I understand there's discrepancies, right? When you look at Radford, 1.2 million versus this endowment at Johns Hopkins, we're not going to get into that. But what we're going to focus on is the fact that there is this funding that's coming in that for what it has, one, it's creating employment opportunities on Radford's end. It's creating employment opportunities. It's creating resources for students that need them. today, tomorrow, for the next 4 years, so that they can graduate from school and have what they need without the burden of what tuition could look like. That the next generation of medical doctors that are coming out of Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, they are going to be debt-free. They're going to walk out as they're matching to go to residency programs, as they're going into programs that are going to pay them. We know residency doesn't pay a whole lot, but as they're going into residency, as they're going into practicing for their next steps, we know that folks pursuing medicine, and this is not only affecting aspiring doctors, but also nurses. So general medical students, right? They are going to go and have the resources that they need coming out of school, having barriers that are broken, that have otherwise been a hindrance. So I just wanted to shout out those two schools for this episode. I just wanted to be able to just share some perspective on current events and things that are happening, things that I'm seeing, because I always say a lot of the work that we're partnering with schools to do, these career wellness workshops, a lot of that can't happen if there aren't enough resources. If it means we're walking away from a school after 6 weeks, we've helped establish closer relationships between the students and the staff. We've been able to assess what the students' needs are. We're able to share all of this data and documentation of why the students need more support, sharing the resources that are readily available. But if there's no action, significant action, impactful action that's going to take place after that because the school has so many limiting resources, it's not going to work out. Because when you combine limited school resources plus students who are already there with so many barriers to entry into colleges, barriers to entry into the workforce, that is just, it just doesn't equate, right? It's like 1 + 1 = 3. It doesn't make sense. So I'm really excited and just wanted to shout out those schools essentially and just tell you what's going on, just some of the things I'm seeing. And I'd love your perspective if you are a higher ed professional. If this is happening at your school, I'd love to talk to you about it. What's going on at your school? How are you making the most of resources? Did you recently also get some funding? What are the plans for that? What are the students' reactions to it? Let's talk about it. If you are a foundation that supports a lot of these initiatives as well, whether you're supporting specifically universities, or you're doing some programming that supports a lot of first generation, low income students to break down those barriers. And you're also working to help those students increase their confidence as they're on their journey to their career development. I'd also love to have a conversation with you. What are you seeing? What conversations are you having? And how can we continue to work together to ensure that the next generation has much less barriers than you and I did, than what we're currently experiencing, like what the generation had before. And yeah, I mean, these are things that just really fire me up, and I'm so excited about it. And I know there's work to do, but I think we always need to stop and reflect on what is being done. And that's really it. I'd love, my call is out to hear what your thoughts are. Again, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube Music as well on YouTube, so we can connect face to face as well. I'm really excited about the conversations that are to come from here and what your thoughts are. And until next Wednesday, take really, really good care. And I can't wait to chat with you again. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Take care.